Yo, what's going on, guys? Anar here. Here to tell you about Unholy Deathknight and just a basic quick guide. I'm not going to go over every little detail about it, but there are some basics I'm going to show you. So first up will be talents. I will show you the raid talents first. All will serve, Unholy Blight. This row is optional. I choose Asphyxiate most of the time. Grip of the Dead's pretty good for Mythic Plus though, especially during Spiteful Weeks, which is the current week. Soul Reaper, which is a very good execute that you only use if the target is at 35% or below, or if they're going to hit 35%, because it is delayed. It's not like Warrior Execute or Kill Shot, where it's instant. It is delayed. It's delayed by 6 seconds. This row is also optional. I tend to go Spell Eater. I know a lot of people go Wraithwalk for the extra mobility. Personally, due to Death's Advance and the way it works, I don't really feel the need for Wraithwalk. I think we're not like super mobile, but we're mobile enough to where we can get out of most stuff with just Death Advance. So I go Spell Eater because we AMS a lot in the raids. Next row is Unholy Pact. This is really good. The chain you don't have to worry about most of the time unless you're doing a cleave fight. So you'll have your pet on, like, say, Altamore while you're on the dog, or vice versa. But the main part is the strength increase by 5% every time your pet is under Dark Transformation, which is pretty huge. Then there's Army of the Damned. Incredibly good talent. All the other talents on this row just aren't really worth it. Unholy Assault, I guess, could be, but it's not great. Unfortunately, Summon Gargoyle is also not great, so if you like the Dark Arbiter playstyle of the past, you're unfortunately not gonna perform too well with Gargoyle. I wish we could use it. I actually like that playstyle quite a bit. Reminds me of basically an unholy Breath of Sindragosa in a way. But Army of the Damned basically just reduces Army and Apocalypse cooldowns with Death Coils and Epidemics. And also, they both also summon a Magus who does pretty good damage. Next, we're going to talk about Enchants really quick. So on chest, you go either stats or skirmish, depending. You're going to have to sim that, unfortunately. On gloves, you go strength. On rings, you go mastery. On your weapon, you go Fallen Crusader. That's pretty much it. The enchants on your rings can change due to your stat weights. Like, my mastery is super low, so mastery is going to be really good for me pretty much no matter what. This never changes. You always go Rune of the Fallen Crusader. That strength boost you get is absolutely insane. Well, let me keep this up, actually, because now I'm going to talk about Legendaries. Legendary for raid is generally going to be Deadliest Coil. Deadliest Coil is pretty good. I say pretty good, but it's actually really good. It reduces the RP cost of Death Coil by 10, which smooths out the rotation quite a bit. If you find you have a lot of downtime in Unholy, that's completely normal until you get Deadliest Coil, because that 10 less RP is actually pretty huge. But the main aspect of Deadliest Coil is Death Coil will also increase the duration of Dark Transformation by 1 second, which is pretty big because you'll end up casting a lot of Death Coils. I mean, on pull, especially with PI, if you get, you can get like up to 40-second Dark Transformations, which is almost like it's almost right back up again. It's pretty insane how Deadliest Coil can be used. But that's pretty much it for raid, with the exception of Altamore, Sun King Salvation, and Stone Legion Generals. But Stone Legion Generals only on Mythic really will Frenzy Monstrosity pull out because the extra adds that spawn. So for Frenzy Monstrosity, mine's only at 190. I know, I was lazy one week on Torghast, and so yeah, not great. But Frenzy Monstrosity increases the attack damage and attack speed of you and your pet by 12% while Dark Transformation is active. This is really good for Mythic Plus and on the bosses I said earlier. But other than that, it's not super huge. I like it a lot. It's about 3% behind in pure single target, but it doesn't smooth out that gameplay like I said Deadliest Coil does. And it doesn't increase the Dark Transformation time and stuff like that. So it's not bad. It's pretty good on burst AoE, like priority burst AoE, but other than that. Speaking of Mythic Plus, let's talk about the Mythic Plus talents. So instead of All Will Serve, you'll generally go Infected Claws, and instead of Soul Reaper, you'll generally go Pestilent Pustules. Bursting Swords can be okay if your tank can pull a lot. Right now, that's not super common. but it's possible that you'll get some use out of Bursting Swords, especially with the Frenzied Monstrosity Legendary. I haven't personally tested it out too much. Why are you, what, updating, okay, whatever. I don't know, something might be going on with the servers again. They've been pretty wonky lately. I don't really know. There we go, now it went through. But in general, it's not a huge deal with that one. With Bursting Swords, I mean. It's decent, but... Alright, so let's talk about consumables really quick. So we're going to use Flask of Spectral Power, or Spectral Flask of Power. The primary stat by 70 is huge. We'll use the Potion of Spectral Strength, 190 for 25 seconds. I mean, I don't really know how to describe how much that is. It's a ton. We use Sharpening Stones. I only have porous in my bags right now because I'm cheap and I haven't used Shaded for Mythic Plus lately because I don't feel like it, and we didn't raid this week due to Christmas. For personal food, if you're not using a feast, which you should be, you'll go ravioli with applesauce, which gives you mastery. It gives about 2% for me. It's just 2% in general. But that's the consumables you use. They're pretty important. I highly recommend you use consumables and enchants and all that. It's a massive DPS loss. I can't tell you how many times people have come to me to review their logs and say, oh my god, I'm parsing in like low green to gray, and it's because a lot of it is because, I mean, there's obviously other issues besides consumables, but consumables will at least get you into green from gray. But let's talk about basic single target rotation now. It's pretty big to get the opener right and to get your cooldown syncing right. So I have a bunch of weak auras that have my cooldowns, and I also have this specific weak aura that basically, for using Blight and APOC, there are rules that you need to follow. I'm not going to go over them because they're a little too long for me to go over in a small video like this, but in general, if you follow this weak aura generally, you'll be able to get it right, but sometimes due to Army of the Damned, it does get a little messed up. So use this as a kind of like training wheels, and then like kind of get a feel for it yourself. But on my weak auras, I have my A-Bomb Limb because I am Necrolord. You could put your Vinthyr one or your Kyrian one, or I guess Night Fae. I personally don't recommend Night Fae just because playing around Death and Decay on single target just doesn't feel worth it to me. It's very clunky. You're using a rune to do it. It's just, I don't know. I don't like it personally, but if you love it, then go ahead. But I have A-Bomb Limb, Army, APOC, Dark Transformation, Unholy Blight. I have Soul Reaper, which, as I said earlier, is your execute ability. And then I have my wounds here. And I also have my rune counter. This is really important due to the fact you need to keep at least 3 runes on cooldown, which means if this is greater than 3, something is wrong. It's not good. You want to keep at least 3 on cooldown. That can be difficult sometimes. It can get a little hectic with haste buffs and things like that. And so we also have this, which is basically it's how I look at runic power. It's pretty good. Mine is a little messed up. It's supposed to be when runic power is greater than or equal to 72. Mine at the moment is 80. You see it says 80 RP. But this will pop up when it's over that threshold or it equals that threshold, and then it's telling you to use a death coil. And why you want to do this is due to the fact that you have you're gonna overcap runic power soon, and if you wait too long, you're either gonna overcap runic power, or it's gonna get into a situation where your runes and runic power kind of clash, and so you're gonna have to pick one to not overcap on, basically. And generally, it's better to not overcap on runic power due to our downtime problem that I was talking about earlier with Deadliest Coil. When we have no runes, no wounds, nothing like that, you use Death Coil in order to fill that space, and if you don't have any, or you like dumped it or whatever, you're just going to be sitting there white hitting it, and that's going to be bad. It's terrible. All right, so really quick, let's talk about our opener. Our opener is long. It's a very long opener. compared to quite a lot of other openers, but it's not super hard. So we're gonna just show you this. This is the one I use. There's a couple variations of it, but this is the one I use. All the variations are like within 6 DPS. It does not matter which variation you use. There's another one in the Unholy FAQ and the Acros Discord, which I highly recommend if you really want to learn this class, you join. It's the best class Discord I've ever joined. So, the opener, Festering Strike, Army of the Dead, Festering Strike, Blight, plus your pot, A-Bomb Limb if you're Necrolord, Dark Transformation, APOC. That's your opener. It's 7 GCDs. It's a lot. It can be a lot, but it's also incredibly important that you get it right. It's a very pivotal part because it sets up the flow of the spec. And the flow is incredibly important. Once you get the flow, you're golden, because the flow is a bit high skill floor, but once you get to that floor, there's not much higher to go. So you're pretty good once you start like getting that flow correct. And the flow is mainly just keeping those runes on cooldown, don't overcap on runic power, and aligning up your Blight and Dark Transformation at least. Also APOC during those certain times. But again, if you just follow the weak aura, it's better than not doing anything like that. Than not like trying to sync it up at all and just using it on cooldown. Do not just cast Unholy Blight or Dark Transformation on cooldown. Do not. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that. You want to sync these two up always. And before you ask, no, Virulent Plague is not more important than having your Dark Transformation get the damage increase from Unholy Blight. Because Unholy Blight does give you a 3% damage increase per stack, and it stacks up to 4 times. And that's pretty huge. Alright, so we're going to talk about actually syncing up these cooldowns and stuff like that. So pretend I'm doing the opener. So yeah, I did Army, I did another one, and so I'm popping all my stuff. Pretend I have a bomb limb here. And like you saw, I got a Deadliest Coil, or not a Deadliest Coil, a Sudden Doom proc. Don't worry too much about that. And so now we're just doing our basic stuff. My pets are still on passive. Remember, like if you're doing like practice, remember to swap them back to assist or defensive or whatever. And so we're just, basically doing our rotation. You see I didn't have enough runes to put another Festering on there, or I didn't have any wounds at all, so I would just Death Coil. Same here. And so that really smoothens out the gameplay, because without like Deadliest Coil, it's pretty ridiculous. All right, so you see this? It says hold Blight. Now it says use Blight, so that's saying that the Blight will align with my Dark Transformation. And that's incredibly important that you do that. And see, I have 3 runes on cooldown. I'm not overcapping runic power. And now it says I got to use APOC. So what I did wrong here is I wasn't paying attention to my APOC cooldown, and so I had to build up runes for it, which isn't great. You don't want to have to do that. You want to at least start prepping for APOC, and ideally you'll also hold a rune for Unholy Blight and Army and Soul Reaper. Like those are the ones you'll want to hold runes for. Generally, it doesn't come up all that often that you need to hold runes for them, but it can. So now we just use Blight again, Dark Transformation again, and we're just in this nice flow. Now, this flow does change with actual boss encounters. You have to remember that. And so we got a Sudden Doom proc, so okay, we'll use that. All right, well, now we're out of runes. We have one for that, and okay, so we're just in this flow. We're in this flow. That's all Unholy really is you get in this flow. See, we at 4, we kind of are overcapping runes a little bit. And that's just because I'm talking, and it can get a little wonky. And see, now this says hold APOC, right? So that means my APOC is up, but if I hold it, I'll have enough to use Unholy Blight with. And so we're holding Blight, and now we're popping all 3 at once. So this is like where Big Burst comes in. You get all 3 of these at once, and now I have like ridiculous amount of runes. You'll also pop A-Bomb Limb here because that 5% strength at minimum increase is pretty huge with especially all these pets out. It'll do a ton of damage. Like, your pet should be doing at least 900 DPS at decent-ish gear. My gear, I wouldn't call my gear good or decent at all. But that's pretty much it when it comes to your single target rotation. It's a bit difficult to get the hang of, but it is pretty easy once you've gotten the hang of it to like execute pretty consistently. It is a flow. You get into a flow and you're good to go. So I'm going to talk to you really quick about our AoE rotation. This is like Mythic plus trash, basically, is what I'm talking to you about here. It gets a bit different with like specific prio situations, but generally you're good to do something like this. So what you're going to do is you're going to pop Festering Strike. You can pop Blight and DT here, and then you pop down your D&D, and you just Festering Strike these wounds down. You see the free wounds I'm getting from my pet Timmy. And then you just do that, and instead of using Death Coil, you use Epidemic, and you'll actually dump Epidemic on AoE situations. But really, that's all there is to Unholy. It's like I said, no class, in my opinion, is super duper hard. I mean, you're not gonna see me playing Feral Druid. that's a little big brain for me. Maybe not Windwalker Monk, because they're also pretty big brain. But for the most part, Unholy isn't super hard. It can be a bit difficult sometimes, but for the most part, you should be fine. As long as you practice and learn the rotation, you're good to go, honestly. You get into that flow and you're fine. If you do have more questions or you want to know some of the more optimization things you can do, so like, for example, they're all in here, right? Yeah. So there's these macros. So these are mod shift macros. Oh no, I just realized my claw isn't macroed into any of my abilities anymore because I had to change my UI. So basically you'll macro claw into your abilities. It's a little bit extra DPS. It's about like 10 DPS or something like that. It's not a lot. I can't remember what the big brains over on Accurate said, but it's not a ton of DPS, but it is more. You do that because Timmy only casts claw automatically over 70 energy, and he can cast it at 40. Which is pretty dumb, but amen. Blizzard AI. Pretty much that's it. There's not too much more to go into that I can think of. There's a couple like pre-pull shenanigans you can do with stuff like Frenzy Monstrosity. If you have it, you can pop it a couple seconds before pull and then swap back to Deadliest Coil, and you're gonna get the buff as long as it for 15 seconds, and then your Timmy will get it as long as he's up in Dark Transformation. It changes your opener a bit. I don't know how much DPS it adds. The big brains over there haven't added it in the Sims yet because it's a bit difficult. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to Unholy. If you have more questions, highly suggest you join the Acros Discord. I'm pretty active over there, so if you want to ask me questions, you can. Or if you see me online and you don't want to ask in the Discord itself, you can just DM me, and that's pretty good to do for me. It's, I love helping people out. I'll analyze logs. I'll do all that kind of stuff. And I know I didn't talk much about when it comes to other covenants, but Venthyr, you pretty much cast Swearing Mist on cooldown. Kyrian, I believe it gives mastery, so you might want to sync that up with your UB and DT. But other than that, you're pretty good to use it on cooldown. And yeah, that's it. The next guide will probably be on Balanced Druid, but before that, I think I'm going to go over how to either sim your character, or I'm going to go over just basic how to improve stuff. It'll just be how to use WoW Analyzer and stuff like that. So if that interests you, go ahead and subscribe, bell icon, whatever. If this helped you out, please give me a like, and if it didn't, give it a dislike and tell me what's wrong with it. All right, guys, thank you. I hope you have a wonderful day.